Dating
Yeah,
Bad is an absolute
yeah.
treat. You've hopefully heard Harvey already. His first interview with us when we met doing the MDS. But since then he's done, and I think we talked about him winning Badwater back then as well. But since then he took on Big's Backyard, got roasted by Courtney, wasn't having any of that, came back, only set the world bloody record. Welcome to the podcast, Harvey Lewis.
Way! Man, thank you so much, David. It's great to chat with you today, and I love connecting with you over there in the UK.
But I think last time we spoke, your documentary just come out with you and your dad. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. We our documentary had a little bit of a challenge in the sense of like getting caught up with the whole challenges of the COVID-19 because it was supposed to come out actually come out April of 2020,
Yeah.
and so that was the same time that the pandemic hit. So it was supposed to open in Hollywood, and then we were supposed to have like it just kind of it put a little bit of a it just kind of tripped it up. Yeah. So we end up making to about I think maybe 70 or 80 theaters around the U.S. and there is we are hoping that it's going to make it to a platform. And we will be able to like share more news about that in the months ahead. But
common?
if anyone is interested, they can follow. And hopefully, we're not being. You can hear me, okay?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, if you get too much background noise, let me know. But hopefully, we will be able to share that, and it'll be on like social media, like Harvey likes on. But that was a great experience, honestly.
Is it because we were talking about it where I can't remember if you'd just done it or it hadn't come out yet, but is it common that Ultra films would get the cinema releases in the States? Like, is it because 70, 80 cinemas actually seems like quite a lot to me, but do you get a lot of Ultra films in the cinema?
Yeah, that's like they're not. It's difficult as an independent film to be successful in theaters, and like America has thousands of theaters, so making it to like 80 is just like a little like drop in the bucket. But you know, it still was great, like because I was able to go see it, and like I had friends and family in other states that were able to go see it. And that was pretty neat, but also around that time, attendance was very low. So it was like, I think that they're averaging like less than 15% or 10% of the theater just because of like the regulations and things. But yeah, it was still a dream come true, you know, to have that experience. Yeah, I reflect back on it often. I even like on my morning run commute today, I was thinking about my experience on the Appalachian Trail and just the lessons I learned from that. But I really would hope that we can get the film out to more people because I think it's a story that people could relate to. It's not just about like going for the record. It's about relationships, and it's about the Appalachian Trail itself, which is a really beautiful. It's almost like going to another country because I kind of compare it to that because there's an entire culture on the Appalachian Trail that's very special that you can't find anywhere else, and it's really fun whether you go out for a day or you decide to go the whole route from Georgia to Maine or vice versa. It's an inspiring place. The nature is incredible.
And is that culture is the culture the people who are walking the trail, or is it people who live on the trail that kind of create that culture?
It's really the people on the trail, but also there's people that are like they call them angels, like trail angels, and they come out and they like put food or drinks out for the through hikers. It's the places along the route from Harper's Ferry to Mount Catogden. I mean, just the wild animals. I love like the orange salamanders. They're like bright orange. And I had like, when I was a child, remember seeing these when I was in Pennsylvania when I was like 4 or 5, and I hadn't seen one since that point. And I thought that it was maybe something in my imagination that those didn't really actually exist. So I was really pleasantly surprised on like the first week of that AT. Once I got into, I think it was North Carolina, and like
Yeah.
seeing these orange salamanders on the trail just like was incredible. That just hit me. I was like, oh wow, that's so neat to. I didn't even know those really did exist. With a black bear, I saw a lot of black bear. And I saw
Yeah.
probably a couple dozen black bears, and even like wild boars. Like they're pretty cool too. People are afraid of them, but they really just they ran from me, and it was fun to see them.
So because moving on to, I guess, to Biggs. So have you done it 3 times now? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, so Biggs, the first time I did Biggs was back in 2017, and ended up that was my first time ever doing a backyard. In fact, it was kind of an interesting thing. I posted like maybe 6 months prior to that to people who follow me, and I posted like 4 races, and I said let's do something unique. Let's make it democratic, and have you guys vote for what race I should do. And so,
What were the
by
options?
and large, the overwhelming vote, I think it was about 85% of people. And I had some other cool adventures on there. I had a 6-day race. I had a race in like Oman. But people selected, like, without a doubt, Big's backyard. So I was like, this is interesting. So I went down to it, and I really didn't have a whole lot of expectations. I think I even ran a marathon the week before. I really didn't taper a whole lot. And I didn't know what I was doing per se, but it was a really fun adventure. And the French runner, Guillaume, and we ended up being the final 2 runners, and we survived almost an added day beyond the Johann Steen and the rest of the field. We were out there for a long time. And so it kind of, it was one of those, it got a lot of following. And it kind of got more people interested in the backyard format. So then the next year, the race just grew again exponentially. And Courtney Dauwalter came out, and there were
because that was where there was an international element, wasn't there, where you were competing with like Belgium and.
Well, no, this was 2018 still, and then so then I did the race again in 2020, and that was with Courtney Dauwalter, where we had the international like competition, where it was like countries versus countries, and that was really interesting. We had a blast with that. It was fun running that way because you were more trying to get every person to try to do the best they could. You know, whereas like in a world championship where it's singular. There is some helping to help the other runners, but when it's a team endeavor, you really are trying. Like, hey, you're like, you don't want to go out yet. You can do another couple laps. Like, come on. So that's.
Do you notice the difference from the year when people weren't helping each other to the international year? Could you see that performances change? Like, how many laps extra do you think that general support got runners to over if they didn't have that support?
Yeah, so I saw some neat things. Like, I would say there's with the team element, I actually in some ways I enjoyed aspects of that race even more, just because from the beginning I would be like giving advice to certain runners like that were on our team, like say, hey, if you maybe tweak this a bit more, you'll be able to last longer. And like in the individual one, I may do that a couple of times, but I try not to like interfere with other people's races so much. But when it's a team one, you're more like likely to maybe give some advice or say more words about you better keep staying here. But and then the neat thing about even the individual one this time, I mean, I saw people helping each other. I know Courtney and Maggie, like they were running together in the individual one this fall, but they were helping another runner at one point to keep going. So like they slowed down from their normal pace and went back to help this runner that they wanted them not to like drop out. of the race, and I thought that was really awesome to see in terms of sportsmanship
Mm.
or sportswomanship.
And in terms of how your preparations changed from the first one to this most recent one, like what went wrong and what have you improved or adapted?
Between the first one in 2017,
Yeah,
or
and your latest one, like what have you changed
yeah.
in your approach and the way you've
Well,
raced?
what has one of the things was well, I definitely learned a lot from 2017 to today. Uh,
Mm.
but one of the things is that in 2017, even like when I went out, it was because I mentally decided to go out. It wasn't because I physically went out at 241 miles. So
Mm.
to be honest with you, I felt pretty good probably even then, even though I went out at 241. I let myself mentally get caught up in the distances, and like I had like already planned to go back to teaching, and like I think it was the next day or so.
Oh,
And
did
so
you have
I
a
was like,
deadline?
when I was at 241 miles, I was like, geez, we're gonna get to 300 miles and no one's gonna quit. And I'm gonna have to like go to school. Yeah, I have to get myself to school. I'm thinking myself, I'm like at that point, and then he's a fantastic runner. A couple laps before that, I really pushed him, and he stuck with me. So like we had like a
Yeah.
super fast lap. I was just kind of testing him, and he stuck with me. And
Interesting. Did he know
so
that you were testing him, do you think?
yeah, I think it's like you have like moments like that where it's like psychological battles, and so yeah, yeah. So in this year, I just took off like ton of time, and I basically said, okay, I'm just gonna go until the last person. So that's the way it was. So I was just gonna stay until I was the last person. And I told Laz that I had in my mind that Laz was going to get tired of seeing me because I
Mm.
was moving to Tennessee, and I was just going to keep on going. So something could have happened, of course, but my goal was to not go out because of my mental decision to
Mm.
go out, but like to go out because I get timed out. And I actually have never been timed out in a backyard ultra, like ever. Yeah,
Oh, is that
yeah. So
is what?
when I've gone out, I've been to assist. I think every time I've come to one of these, I've either been the assist or the final runner now.
Yeah,
Exception one time where I came after I did the Appalachian Trail, and it was already in my mind. I was just coming out to run 4 laps and enjoy
yeah,
everybody and say hello. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, so the for this year, like having it in my mind that I was going to go out based on like being timed out versus mentally making the choice to
Mm.
stop.
And because that's the trouble now that the race when it started was this lovely concept that people would be like, I'll do this for the weekend and then I'll come back home. Whereas now actually you people are having to genuinely figure out their work and the logistics behind the difference between a day and a half, 2 days, and 3.5 days is quite dramatic in terms of taking time out of your life. Is it now a case that everyone who arrives is mentally prepared that it might take that long?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really the limits are open. Like people can continue to push themselves, and we'll continue to push what we think is humanly possible, and so that time length is going to continue to grow. And you go back like one of the earlier uh, backyard ultras. In fact, with Johan Bean, he's a fantastic person and runner. Uh, he and the other guy, they made a compromise. Like once they got to 200, they agreed to like that would be the end of the race
Mm,
because one of them had to get back to work, and I think Johan had to fly home. So
mm,
that was like the earlier period. But now it's like, yeah, it's definitely likely that the race is going to go. Uh, it, I expected the record that Chris Roberts and I set. I expected that will be broken, sooner than later. and it's definitely, it has potential to go a long time. It depends a lot on the course as well. Like there are some courses that are easier and others are harder, but I think it definitely could go a long time.
Because we saw with I think it was the Belgians when it was you and Courtney against them two, and they then hammered it out for what was then the record. But they were they were running significantly faster in their laps and taking more rest that it seemed that people had done previously. Did you take that on board when you came back, or were you still trying to not well to reduce your pace still and have more of control? Like, how many minutes were you planning on, and how did that go?
Yeah, so as far as I understand, the Belgium course, it had its own inherent challenges of being like repetitive,
Mm,
but they had a rather very flat course, so they're running a flat course, and I don't believe they had like a technical course as well. So it's
mm,
very, it's flat and non-technical. So that is a major like difference in
mm,
terms of the courses, like because Biggs has elevation with each loop, more on the trail than on the road, but there's elevation. And then on the trail, there's like a lot of technical aspects like turning and rocks and roots and little like ups and downs and things like that. So the time comparison is going to be different, like for sure. So
mm,
I don't know. I'd have to like actually experience that course to like get
mm,
my right like personal like pacing like time. But for Biggs, I was running at like a pretty like easy, not super aggressive effort, and I probably was finishing the loops in like 50, 52 or 53 minutes on the trail and like maybe 48 minutes on the road. But
mm,
again, like it's so specific to each course. Like
mm,
that's different than if there's certainly challenges of being just on a flat course, because then get you don't get the variety that might help your muscles, like a little variety too. But
mm.
it's definitely a difference in terms of time. Like I mean, if it's a total flat course, you're gonna run that, definitely quicker. But I'm not sure that quicker is better. And it's gonna be interesting. It'll be interesting to see the next world championship race we have.
Yeah. Well, because talk us through what your process is then for each lap. Does it change greatly from day one to day two to day three, or are you always doing the same things every loop?
Well, yeah, you definitely want to get into a rhythm, and it's like whatever that rhythm is. If it's working, then you don't really want to change it. And so, it's like that's pretty important, is being like consistent with your rhythm. And like, I don't use any GPS like components to my watch. I just like go off of like time. I know where I am, at certain points on the loop,
Mm,
and that helps. But you do adjust to like the changing environment. So, for example, like in 2017, the first year I did this, we had like a really warm first night, and it was hot. Like I mean, it was like literally hot, and and then the second night we had this incredible like monsoon like downpour of rain. So I mean, it was just like such an adjustment.
mm,
Normally I don't get tired in the first night with sleep. And I remember in 2017, I was like feeling really sleepy the first night, but then the second night it was just like just getting buckets and buckets of cold water dashed on you. So I wasn't at all sleepy the second night, but I was like just having to make sure I maintain my body temperature, after you're getting going for so long.
mm,
And so I think that you adjust yourself in terms of like your gear,
mm,
perhaps a little bit more. And but just staying consistent with nutrition. Like I eat all plant-based foods, so it's I feel that that's extremely effective for this racing, for ultras in general, but for this race format. I mean, I've gotten sick to my stomach. Like I can count fewer than 5 times, like fewer than 5 times the last like 6 years. And so I can eat a lot of calories, and like being that it's plant-based, my body digests those calories very rapidly.
Are they all natural food then, or do you have plant-based gels as well, or what type of
Yeah,
things are we
definitely.
talking?
Like I use some gels as well for the race, but it's like you want to have complex carbohydrates, and
Mm,
it's kind of like a fire. So if you're starting a fire, you might have little twigs and little like paper. Those would be like your gels, your like dried fruit. But then you want to get the logs. You want to have like my lentil soup, my miso soup, my some sort of pasta, things like that, that are more hearty, like that your body can like
mm.
burn as fuel. Yeah.
And well, what changes during the course of those 3 days? Like how does it feel differently from day one to day two to day three?
Yeah, there's definitely a change in the experience, and like that's one of the fun things about like this racing format, because
Mm,
uh, yeah, I think it's for everyone. Everyone could come out and like challenge themselves. Like I in my first one I did, I had there was a lady who was going for her first half marathon, and like that was so much fun to see her first half marathon miss our race. So it was like there's a lot of chatter the first day, and it's one of the things it's kind of like one of the things I miss about Big's Backyard, because when I first did Big's Backyard, like basically anyone could get into it in
mm,
2017.
mm.
Like you could have anyone get into it, and it was also just you'd have all different ability levels. So I think I can remember there was a runner who was really trying to get finished with loop number two, and he may have made it loop number two or timed out loop number three, but it
Mm,
was so neat to see him, trying and pushing and like working his best, and then getting timed out, but he was giving his all. So like,
mm.
and it was out, and he was out there and he's moving, and it's awesome. So I was inspired by that. I love that. So it was neat. That was really neat. Now Biggs is like only you can only be in Biggs if you're like a winner of the golden ticket from
Yeah,
being
yeah.
a victor of one of the designated like champion races, or you've run over 200 miles in one of these competitions and you were like the assist. So like now it's like if someone goes out in the first 24 hours, it's almost surprising at Big's Backyard.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah,
you
that's so
really,
different, isn't it?
yeah, it's really and so that's something I don't know, going into 2022. I definitely love this racing format, and I'm not sure if I only want to do it like in Bigs in October, because this past year I did it twice. I did one in the spring, Ohio
Yeah.
Backyard Ultra, and then one with Bigs, and it's a lot of fun. So I don't know if I only want to do it once, but it might only be once this year ahead. But it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy this racing format, and like just the camaraderie in day one. Day one
Mm,
has a ton of camaraderie. So even in bigs, like there's a lot more just talking and like kind of jovial environment.
yeah.
Day two gets a little more serious, and like day two, people start dropping off, and some people that you thought would last longer, or this or that. So like there's a little bit more pressure, especially
Mm,
because when you're in a competitive race like bigs, because you look around, you're like, there's a ton of really accomplished runners here, and so if you really want to be amongst the final few, you're gonna have to really give it a strong effort.
and what do you
So
think
there's a little bit
separates
of
those?
anticipation.
What
Was
do you
that?
think it is what do you think it is that separates those final few? Because you've been last man standing or semi every time. Is it like what base of it is fitness, what base of it is kind of mental preparation, and what base of it is just kind of raw stubbornness?
Stubbornness is good. It's a good quality in the backyard ultra for sure. There's definitely a strong element of strategy. So like there's the uh, strategy element, and I love strategy. I love the strategic element. You know, that's a huge part of it. But then you have the other side of the mental aspect is like the creating the positive mind, like and like working through with a positive mindset. So it's like you have problem solving and you have positive mindset you have to put together. And then there is definitely like physical. You have to be physically prepared because there's a lot of competition now. So being physically prepared really is important too. And there's some sort of like crossover with it, like almost an equal balance with that. But yeah, it probably is more mental than it is physical, but you have to have the physical as well.
And what were you doing for your sleep then?
Sleep. So in 2017, I had no idea what was really going on with this race until I got into it, and I was actually into it, like actually running it. You know, I didn't really do any type of sleeping at all. In fact, my crew chief Judd, he ended up coming from some other event he was doing. He ended up arriving. We had already planned this, but he arrived like the afternoon of the first day. So my place was kind of something I threw together, just my tent and like some random things. It looked like a mess, but I didn't like really sleep. I don't remember. I think I laid down maybe one time in 2017, and then you know, it's evolved to the point where now I'm very like deliberate with laying down every lap in the nighttime. You know, I'll aim to lay down for 4 or 5 minutes and do my best to sleep, and it helps. So yeah, that really helps. Like I did a lot more reading about it and learning about sleep and things like that.
And are you trying to? Because I know when I can't remember if it. I think it was the British runner who had set the record before you broke it, and he talked about almost getting into a meditative state when you're coming into the end of the end of the lap, so that you're almost winding down your brain so that it's easier to slip into sleep. Do you do anything like that?
That's a good idea. Actually, one of my 24-hour teammates, Steve Slabby, he was doing something like that, and he got me like it made me think about it. So there's like a hill that's right before the encampment, and you know, I had been like running once I got to the top of that hill to the encampment, and he had been just walking. So he was adding like maybe an extra minute onto his time on the lap. But he was saying to me, oh yeah, I do this so I can like slow down my heart rate before I get into the tent. And it made sense to me. So I did do that a little bit more. But it's a bit challenging also, like when you're at bigs, because there's so much energy, and you're also you know, drinking a lot like calories, and you're like also trying to like think about, well, Laz is gonna blow those 3 whistles anytime now, and so you don't want to oversleep. There's a lot of things that go through your mind. It's harder to slow down your mind than if you're just like on some random like, you know, race that's maybe you're out in the woods and no one else is really around.
Yeah. And are you setting an alarm that goes off every single hour at the right time, or do you set it when you come back in?
You know, my alarm was my buddy Judd. So he was phenomenal. Like, yeah, I trusted everything with him, and so having a really strong crew chief is super important.
And do you stretch during each lap as well at the end of it, or things like that? Do you do any body management while you're going around?
Yeah, I tend to do those kind of things, like actually all the time when I'm running ultras. Yeah, I like to do a little of that for sure.
And we've got a few questions. And how long did it take you, this latest one, how long did it take you to recover from that? And what did that recovery look like?
Yeah, so again, the plant-based foods, I'll say, because actually I did two big races leading up to this race. I did a 24-hour race, 7 weeks out,
Hmm.
and a trail race, Superior 100, that has 20,000 feet of climbing. 13 days after that, so I finished first in the 24-hour and second in the trail 100. And then I had 5 weeks to bigs. So I had to already cover quickly in order to get ready for bigs. And then
Hmm.
after bigs, I like finished like at 9 p.m. and I just enjoyed myself there. And then I like went to bed and I got up. And then the next day, we drove back to Cincinnati, and to keep my run streak, I ran the next night. Like I ran like it was just a mile, but I ran, and then I'd like the next morning after that, I ran to work with my backpack and ran home. So it was like I really just kind of went right back into my normal routine. But eating the foods that like anti-inflammation,
Hmm.
uh, it's like the energy, it's just really incredible. So yeah, then that actually weekend I ended up running a race, but I wasn't planning to run that race. It was just a little local race with my fiance.
And and do
So
you
she,
do you catch up on the sleep at any point, or like an hour a day, or is that sleep
no,
just
it was
gone?
funny. Like after I did the race, I actually woke up at like 3 a.m. So I only slept for like maybe 5 hours, and I was like ready to go. I was like, all right, I'm excited about the. I was excited. I was just excited to have this experience. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
But I will say, yeah, for like about a week, I would have these dreams where I was still running, and so I would like switch from like the right side to the left side. My fiance was getting probably driven crazy because I kept on dreaming I was switching from like running on the road to running on the trail, and I just
Yeah.
move around. And my teammate Judd, he told me that he kept on having these dreams that he had overslept, and I had like he had missed waking me up. And apparently, Laz, he posted on social media that he had these dreams that he was forgetting to blow the whistle. So
Because
we all like were caught into this. Where it lasted for at least a week, and it might have been like 10 days where I was. And I did take some days where I would like on the weekend. I think I slept in maybe another like hour or something,
and
or I may have
Did
like
Laz
taken a
make
little
it
power
through the
nap.
whole? Did Laz make it through the whole of backyard, or did he have a replacement for the whistles at any time?
Oh, geez, yeah, Laz, that guy is a character, man, isn't he? Yeah, yeah. I think he truly made. I think he made every single whistle. So he somehow managed to pull that together. I don't know how he did that for 85 hours. And I
Yeah.
know his wife Sandra was about ready to probably have us out of there. It's like this. He did not realize how this Big's backyard phenomenon was going to be taken off, and
Yeah.
it's gone a long ways from the early days.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, we've got some quick fire questions, if it's all right. I'm conscious of time, but first one from Dan is, what do you think now that you've tested it a bit more? Where do you think the limit's going to be once people are perfecting this race?
Thanks, Dan, for the question. That's awesome. Yeah, I certainly I think it's limited by our own imagination. So I like to leave my imagination open. I do remember a competitor in the race
Hmm.
asked me, "Is it possible to go 500 miles at Bigs?" And I said yes. Like, why not? Like, I mean, I think
Hmm.
anything's possible. So just by saying something, you create like a space for people to feel it. And so it's really dependent on like there are some limits to the human body. I'm not gonna match Usain Bolt in the 100 meters, that's for sure. But you with this format, it's pretty neat because you can really push to cover a great distance, and like there's things like nutrition, pacing, like mindset that influence it.
And do you feel like do you get to a point where each lap is in an equilibrium, or do you think it is still, every single hour you are weakening somewhat?
Oh, could you say that one more time?
Do you think the body does find almost an equilibrium after a while, or is it the case that you do think the body gets worse every single lap slightly?
Yeah, I think that there is certainly like some equilibrium, but it's different for each runner. Yeah, so it depends on people's like personal like abilities. It depends on like the course itself. So, for example, like in Ohio Backyard this year, like the first 4 hours were really wet, and like so you're making adjustments, and then it dried out, and like so I changed my shoes. I really like my shoes a lot. I wear Newtons, and I swear by them. Like they're like a little tiny underdog company in a sense. Like look at the big market. They have like very limited resources in terms of marketing relative to the big names, but they are phenomenal in terms of the quality, and like the design is very efficient for the human body. And so you land on the midsole and take off from the front, which is like very similar to what human evolution is. But they're not minimalist shoes. So like that's a big thing as well, because I don't get Chris Roberts, he was injured. Not to say that it happened because of shoes, but like an injury is one of the things that typically knocks people out. And I have not been injured, fortunately, knock on wood. But that's a big thing in terms of like my form. It's almost always the same from the beginning of the race to the end of the race.
Interesting. So actually, and is that partly also, do you do weights, and do you have a kind of plyometrics system that you use, or?
Hold on one second.
So for the listeners, Harvey's
we're doing
actually in class at college.
we got the recycling club happening. Everyone's anxious to get their sign-offs.
Amazing. Well, do you need to go? Do we need to?
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming back on. And if we can screen this, let us know when the documentary's out. In a way, we can screen it over here, and we'll put something together.
Do you say you want to like do a little time later in the day?
Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. But if once the documentaries, if we can screen it over here, let us know, and we'll try and do something with Bad Boy Running so people can watch it, and maybe get a screening over here.
Yeah, that would be incredible. Absolutely. David, I'll try to get in touch with you about it.
Yeah, cool.
But because I really don't know what is going to happen at this point. Like, I'm really optimistic that we have it on a platform that can be seen in the UK and Europe as well. But we'll have to see what happens, with things.
And last quick question: when I met you in the desert, I just knew you as Harvey. Then the Sweet Love was on your Facebook profile name, and I thought that was your name, but now it's disappeared. So what is the Sweet Love about?
Sweetland is my middle name. Yeah, so it goes back to my great-great-grandmother.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a nickname or something.
If I survive Barkley, maybe Laz will give me a new running name.
The Shuffle.
We'll see.
Something like that. Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming on. Congrats on.
Thank you so much, and I really hope you have a great adventure again.
Yeah,
And
and
I really appreciate it. I always love connecting with the UK.
thank the class for doing their recycling. It's always good.
Oh yeah, recycling is so important. That's right. All
Definitely.
right,
Cheers,
take care.
Harvey. Speak
Bye
soon.
bye.
Bye.